According to Cato the Car Guy, if you are a diesel groupie, this is your year. A flood of new diesel-powered vehicles are coming off the production lines, and once a month or so, we invite automotive journalist, TV host, and Globe and Mail columnist Jeremy Cato to talk cars with us in Studio 4. It is my pleasure to welcome Monsieur Cato back to the broadcast. Oh no, Herr Cato, you've come from Frankfurt.
That's right, Frankfurt. We were at the the biggest auto show in the world. Every 2 years, there's the Frankfurt Auto Show,
Ooh.
And it's an exhausting show. I mean, it's in Frankfurt in the exhibition area called the Messe. 11 buildings. I mean, I walked miles.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, you said in your article, I think, that it was a massive, sweaty affair.
Well, most organizers of these kinds of events really hate the media. We are a necessary evil because we get the message out, but
yes.
They don't make it nice for us. I mean, they don't turn on the air conditioning.
Really?
No.
See, I thought you were sipping champagne
No.
riding around in Ferraris. No.
No, the world's in a recession, and Europe is an economic basket case. I mean, come on. But, I've been to auto shows where it was so hot. Paris 8 years ago. It was 40 degrees outside, and they did not turn on the air conditioning inside on the first day. And even the car company executives were racing back and forth to change their shirts because they were doing television, right? And you can't be covered in sweat while you're doing it. Anyway.
That's why there's so many girls in skimpy outfits.
Well, it is a cross I have to bear when I go to auto shows, having to look at this sort of thing. But anyway, the next day, Jacques Chirac arrived,
yes.
Who was, I guess, president at the time. They turned the air conditioning on. It was so cold in there you could hang meat in the place.
See, well, it pays to be a politician at a high level.
The journos and the car executives, we don't matter.
Forget it.
But if you're president...
Pretty much. Yeah, ask any president. Now, diesel. Diesel has not gone away. Is it back in a new way? What's the drill?
The diesel story in North America is a story that is, Canadians will like diesels. Canadians buy diesels. More than half of all the vehicles, cars that Volkswagen sells in Canada are diesel-powered. But Americans hate them. Americans had a really bad experience with diesels back in the 70s and 80s.
You mean when blue smoke was blowing out of the back of your car?
Right, and they were unreliable. And they, and the American diesel infrastructure, where you fill things up, is more truck stops than it is places where you and I would fill up.
Right.
But in Canada, that's a different thing. And also, diesel is more expensive in the United States. The bottom line here is that Americans have always balked at bringing diesels in for the last 35 years. In Canada, that's a problem because we really only get what the Americans want because it's so expensive. That's changing because fuel economy issues are changing.
Okay.
Car companies have to do meet fleet-wide fuel economy rules, 35 miles of the gallon, 35 and a half miles of the gallon, coming in 2016. The quickest way to improve your fuel economy in any vehicle is to go from gasoline to diesel. You get an immediate 25 to 40% fuel economy improvement. So the bottom line here is the Americans are going to start getting diesels. We're going to get more diesels because there's a better market for them.
Environmentally just as clean?
No, I mean, a diesel can be pretty clean if you use, the problem with diesel fuel is that you get a lot of particulates, little stuff coming out of the tailpipe that get in the air, and you get a lot of oxides of nitrogen, which is a pollutant, basically. And you got to clean that up. There's a couple of ways to do that. With bigger ones, like in an Audi Q7 TDI diesel, there are after treatments in the exhaust that clean up the mess. The particulate filters and the urea that cleans up the emission.
Right.
Smaller engines, you can do that internally by burning the thing.
Okay.
So we're seeing the technology come along to make diesels as clean as a car is today, but that's a moving target because, of course, emissions regulations keep getting tighter and tighter.
And different in Europe and in the United States. There's no standardization. Is there yet?
So you read my article.
I read all your articles.
Well, I mean, if you wanted, when you go to Frankfurt, which is this huge international auto show, there's a lot of cars shown there and sport utilities and so on that aren't sold here. And they aren't sold here because they don't meet specific North American crash and emission rules. The Europeans are more concerned with CO2 emissions than they are with fuel economy. North American rules are more concerned with fuel economy than they are with CO2 emissions.
Okay.
And so there's a little bit different bit of engineering, but mostly it's all about meeting the specific, it's like taking the test. The European cars take the test they need to take in Europe, but they don't necessarily pass the test here, and vice versa. If we wanted to have vehicles like the Fiat Panda,
yes, which we do.
It's a cute little car. Fiat sold 6.5 million Pandas around the world. We saw the new Panda in Frankfurt. you know, this is a perfectly good little car. We don't get that car because it will not meet the specific North American crash test standards, and it won't meet the specific North American emissions regulations, even though it meets very tough European.
Well, the way the Europeans drive, you'd think they would. I mean, they're fast. They're good drivers, most of them.
Well,
I know it's a generalization, but they do zip along.
Well,
You'd think they'd want good crash test standards.
well, they do have them. It's, you know, there is the European standard, but it's slightly different than the North American standard.
Can we blame it on Ralph Nader or anybody like that?
Well, no, you can blame it on the fact that politicians want to be in control of their own local environment. If the Japanese, the Australians, the North Americans and the Europeans all got together, because they all have very, very different standards that basically get you to the same place. If they all got together and wrote one set of rules, then every car could be sold in every market, anywhere in the world, cheaper.
Of course.
Wouldn't that make sense?
Wouldn't it make sense? And what about this global idea?
Well, I mean, you know, I don't know if you give credit to the Harper government or not for this, because this is a political discussion.
Right.
But what the Harper government has done is say, whatever the Americans do, that's what we'll do. We're not going to try and make our own Canadian standards, which is interesting because Australia, which is a smaller population than ours, they have their own standards down there.
Really?
But it adds cost. Cars are really expensive. Like you know, your basic Ford, Mondeo would be $40,000 that's a $20,000 car.
Oh,
in Europe,
that's a lot.
Or 25,000 euro car.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if the Americans and the Canadians and the Europeans and the Japanese and the Australians, just all those politicians got together and said, we'll have one set of rules. The car companies would love it because their costs would go down, and you would love it because you'd have more potential choices. Any importer in Canada could import any car from around the world. It would be safe, it'd be clean, it would be fuel efficient, and you'd have more choice.
Life can be so simple, but we make it complicated. Well, we just have to.
What did Tip O'Neill say? All politics is local. And that's
so
what this is all about.
We care about what happens 5 blocks from our home.
Right.
Audi urban concept car?
Cool,
not cool?
Well, I think it's cool. One of the things we're seeing, I mean, this will never become a production car. It's a single vehicle, person vehicle. And, you know, this thing is going to come to not going to come to market, but it does showcase some ideas about lightweight technologies, how you could have personal transportation in tight urban environments. So, you know, what am I saying about that? Think of the smart car. You know, a little 2-seater. It starts at about $16,000 in Canada. And if all you want to do is sort of zip around from Yaletown to Kitsilano.
Into the grocery store.
Yeah, into the grocery store.
Good second car for sure.
Right, and we had I was just in Toronto this week, and there was a big electric vehicle conference. And one of the vehicles there that we test drove for the TV show was a smart car, electric smart car.
Really?
Well, it makes perfect sense, you know, because that's not a vehicle I want to drive to Whistler.
No, you might want to drive a Ferrari.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, you want to drive that's your weekend car, like something like a 458 Spider, which you know, this is one of those cars that you talk about the models. I mean, you know, any Italian car is decorated with beautiful models,
and even the bags match. Really?
Well, you know, I mean, but to put that in some perspective,
it's retractable hard top.
It's a convertible. Yeah. Everybody's going that direction.
They are.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful car, very fast, but you know, Ferrari's going to sell 500 a year. You know,
probably.
Yeah,
and it may not be in my garage, but probably in yours, being a wealthy journalist and all.
Yeah, right. Yeah, have you seen what journalists make? Yeah.
Yeah, I know how much a word. Rolls-Royce Phantom Coupe, like that car.
Again, Rolls-Royce is an interesting story. I mean, Rolls is you know, one of BMW's brands, and you know, it has to grow its portfolio, more vehicles, so you take more derivatives of an existing vehicle. The Ghost was launched last year as a sort of a more personal transportation Rolls, and then now you make it a soft top or make it a coupe. And I mean, these are the ideas that you can do to increase your lineup without increasing too much cost.
I know, I sat in the back of that Rolls, so did
I
you.
know, we did.
I sat in the front of the Rolls.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but you got to drive it, because it's actually a pretty nice car to drive.
Well, I'm sure they'd be happy to just give me one for the weekend, don't you think?
Yeah, they would. Yeah, sure.
Actually, Mr. Ford is going to do that.
Mondragon?
Mondragon said he wants to get me into a titanium. He wants me to leave the BMW.
The Escape? Or the Focus? Focus.
Yeah.
It's
no, I guess so.
Focus Titanium.
Is it called titanium?
Yeah, but $30,000.
Oh, really? I like the color,
with leather,
titanium.
Oh, well, you're going to like
and
the
leather
car.
inside, too.
Yeah, you're going to like the car.
And I can back up and it makes a beep or talks to me? Probably.
Oh, and you can talk to it and tell it what to do.
No.
Which is like
I like that.
That's like the first man in your life who will actually do what you say, you know?
That is the first man that does what I say. Bugatti?
Veyron?
Veyron? What? Tell me about that.
Well, you know,
a Grand Sport vehicle or what?
Well, yes. I mean, it's a Grand Touring car. It's more a GT car. I mean, look at this. I mean, if you were going to drive, let's say, from Milan to Venice, which is a lovely drive, which I have done.
Yes.
You know, lots of big sweeping curves, lots of wide open places to really air a car out. There you go. Take a car like that. It's I think it's 500 and some odd 550 horsepower.
Yeah.
You know, $1 million.
It's very Marimekko. There used to be a fabric called Marimekko, Sweden. I'm sure there still is a Swedish fabric named Marimekko, and that's what it looked like. We wore dresses like that.
Really?
Yes, we did, before you were born.
Would they look good in those cars?
Well, could be a little clashy. The BMW 13 Concept?
i3. The electric car.
Oh, the i3.
Yeah,
it says 13
it's the electric car.
Oh, the electric car, the i3.
Right. This is BMW. You know, of course, to meet these global emissions regulations, is introducing a whole idea called efficient dynamics, and one element of that is electric vehicles created as electric vehicles, and not converting an existing car with batteries.
Oh, I see.
So that is their first urban runabout that is designed from the ground up as an electric car. Now, two things that are really interesting about that. One is that body you're looking at is made of carbon fiber, so very light. Now, put that in perspective. The Nissan Leaf electric car has gone on sale in Canada now.
Right.
That is about the same size, but weighs 600 pounds less.
I see, but if you get smacked in a carbon fiber car.
Well, that's just the body panels. There is a steel cage, high-strength steel.
Underneath.
That's what protects you.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that. Nice to see you again.
Happy birthday to you.
Hey, that you knew, eh?
I did.
Well, there's a little present waiting for me. I saw it.
Oh, what's his name?
I don't know.
Yeah.
What's his name? Thank you. Jeremy Cato. You can read him in the Globe and Mail and watch him on television. You can catch all of our conversations on YouTube or follow us on Twitter at Fanny Studio 4. And tomorrow, famed industrial designer Ross Lovegrove, UK's maestro of form, the man who helped design the Sony Walkman, spreads the word about daring design. And quintessential skincare expert, dermatologist, and scientist Dr. Zain Obaji from Beverly Hills gives us the trade secrets of skin rejuvenation. And culinary divo Tim Ellison drops in to chat about hot Vancouver restaurants and his recent trip to France. Thanks for watching Studio 4. Lots more on Shaw TV, only on Shaw TV.